The Warring States period was an era in ancient Chinese history following the Spring and Autumn period and concluding with the Qin Wars of Conquest that saw the annexation of all other contender states, which ultimately led to the Qin states' victory in 221 BC as the first unified Chinese empire, known as the Qin dynasty. Although different scholars point toward different dates ranging from 481 BC to 403 BC as the true beginning of the Warring States, Sima Qian's choice of 475 BC is generally the most often cited and popularly accepted one. The Warring States era also overlaps with the second half of the Eastern Zhou dynasty, though the Chinese sovereign, known as the King of Zhou, ruled merely a figurehead and served as a backdrop against the machinations of the Warring States. The Warring States period derives its name from the Record of the Warring States, a work compiled early in the Han Dynasty. Geography. The political geography of the era was dominated by the 7 warring states, namely, Qin. The state of Qin was in the far west, with its core in the Wei River Valley and Guanzhong. This geographical position offered protection from the states of the Central Plains and it also limited its initial influence. The 3 jints, northeast of Qin, on the Shanxi Plateau, were the 3 successor states of Jin. These were Han, south, along the Yellow River, controlling the eastern approaches to Qin; Wei, middle; Zhao, the northernmost of the 3; Qi, located in the east of China, centered on the Shandong Peninsula, described as east of Mount Tai but whose territory extended far beyond; Chu, located in the south of China, with its core territory around the valleys of the Han River and, later, the Yangtze River; Yan, located in the northeast, centered on modern-day Beijing. Late in the period, Zhan pushed northeast and began to occupy the Liaodong Peninsula. Besides these 7 major states, some minor states also survived into the period. Yu. On the southeast coast near Shanghai was the state of Yu, which was highly active in the late Spring and Autumn era but was eventually annexed by Chu. Sichuan. In the far southwest were the states of Ba and Shu. These were non-Zhou states that were conquered by Qin late in the period. In the Central Plains comprising much of modern-day Henan province, many smaller city-states survived as satellites of the larger states, though they would eventually be absorbed as well. Zhongshan. Between the states of Zhao and Yan was the state of Zhongshan, which was eventually annexed by Zhao in 296 BC. Periodization. The Spring and Autumn period was initiated by the eastward flight of the Zhou court. There is no one single incident or starting point for the Warring States era. The political situation of the period was a culmination of historical trends of conquest and annexation which also characterized the Spring and Autumn period. As a result, there is some controversy as to the beginning of the era. Some proposed starting points are as follows. 481 BC. Proposed by Song-era historian Lu Zuqian, since it is the end of the Spring and Autumn annals. 476–475 BC. The author, Sima Qian, of Records of the Grand Historian who chose the inaugural year of King Yuan of Zhou. 453 BC. The partition of Jin saw the destruction of that key state of the earlier period and creating 3 of the 7 warring states. Han, Zhao, and Wei. 441 BC. The inaugural year of Zhou kings starting with King Ai of Zhou. 403 BC. The year when Han, Zhao and Wei were officially recognized as states by the Zhou court. Author Sima Guang of Zhitongjian tells us that the symbol of eroded Zhou authority should be taken as the start of the Warring States era. Background and formation. The system of feudal states created by the Western Zhou dynasty underwent enormous changes after 771 BC with the flight of the Zhou court to modern-day Luoyang and the diminution of its relevance and power. The Spring and Autumn period led to a few states gaining power at the expense of many others. the latter no longer able to depend on central authority for legitimacy or protection. During the Warring States period, many rulers claimed the mandate of heaven to justify their conquest of other states and spread their influence. The struggle for hegemony eventually created a state system dominated by several large states, such as Jin, Chu, Qin and Qi, while the smaller states of the Central Plains tended to be their satellites and tributaries. Other major states also existed, such as Wu and Yu in the southeast. The last decades of the Spring and Autumn era were marked by increased stability, as the result of peace negotiations between Jin and Chu, which established their respective spheres of influence. This situation would end with the partition of Jin, whereby the state was divided between the houses of Han, Zhao and Wei, and thus enabling the creation of the 7 major warring states. Partition of Jin. The rulers of Jin had steadily lost political powers since the middle of the 6th century BC to their nominally subordinate nobles and military commanders, a situation arising from the traditions of the Jin which forbade the involvement of relatives of the ducal house. This allowed other clans to gain fiefs and military authority, and decades of internecine struggle led to the establishment of 4 major families: the Han, Zhao, Wei and Ji. The Battle of Jinyang saw the allied Han, Zhao and Wei destroy the Ji family and their lands were distributed among them. With this, they became the de facto rulers of most of Jin's territory. Though this situation would not be officially recognized until half a century later, the Jin division created a political vacuum that enabled during the first 50 years expansion of Chu and Yu northward and Qi southward. Qin increased its control of the local tribes and began its expansion southwest to Sichuan. Early warring states. The 3 Jins recognized in 403 BC, the Zhou court under King Weili officially recognized Zhao, Wei and Han as immediate vassals, thereby raising them to the same rank as the other warring states. From before 405 until 383, the 3 Jins were united under the leadership of Wei and expanded in all directions. The most important figure was Marquis Wen of Wei. In 408 to 406 he conquered the state of Zhongshan to the northeast on the other side of Zhao. At the same time he pushed west across the Yellow River to the Luo River, taking the area of Xie. The growing power of Wei caused Zhao to back away from the alliance. In 383 it moved its capital to Handan and attacked the small state of Wei. Wei appealed to Wei, which attacked Zhao on the western side. Being in danger, Zhao called in Chu. As usual, Chu used this as a pretext to annex territory to its north, but the diversion allowed Zhao to occupy a part of Wei. This conflict marked the end of the power of the United Jins and the beginning a period of shifting alliances and wars on several fronts. In 376 BCE, the states of Han, Wei and Zhao deposed Duke Jing of Jin and divided the last remaining Jin territory between themselves, which marked the final end of the Jin state. In 370 BC, Marquis Wu of Wei died without naming a successor, which led to a war of succession. After 3 years of civil war, Zhao from the north and Han from the south invaded Wei. On the verge of conquering Wei, the leaders of Zhao and Han fell into disagreement about what to do with Wei, and both armies abruptly retreated. As a result, King Hui of Wei was able to ascend the throne of Wei. By the end of the period, Zhao extended from the Shanxi Plateau across the plain to the borders of Qi. Wei reached east to Qi, Lu and Song. To the south, the weaker state of Han held the east-west part of the Yellow River Valley, surrounded the Zhou royal domain at Luoyang and held an area north of Luoyang called Shangdang. Qi resurgence under Tian Duke Kang of Qi died in 379 BC with no heir from the House of Jiang, which had ruled Qi since the state's founding. The throne instead passed to the future King Wei, from the House of Tian. The Tian had been very influential at court towards the end of Jiang rule, and now openly assumed power. The new ruler set about reclaiming territories that had been lost to other states. He launched a successful campaign against Zhao, Wei and Wei, once again extending Qi territory to the Great Wall. Sima Qian writes that the other states were so awestruck that nobody dared attack Qi for more than 20 years. The demonstrated military prowess also had a calming effect on Qi's own population, which experienced great domestic tranquility during Bai's reign. By the end of King Bai's reign, Qi had become the strongest of the states and proclaimed itself king, establishing independence from the Zhou dynasty. Wars of Wei. King Hui of Wei set about restoring the state. In 362-359 BC he exchanged territories with Han and Zhao in order to make the boundaries of the three states more rational. In 364 BC Wei was defeated by Qin at the Battle of Shimen and was only saved by the intervention of Zhao. Qin won another victory in 362 BC. In 361 BC the capital was moved east to Daliang to be out of the reach of Qin. In 354 BC, King Hui of Wei started a large-scale attack on Zhao. By 353 BC, Zhao was losing badly and its capital, Handan, was under siege. The state of Qi intervened. The famous Qi strategist, Sun Bin, the great-great-great-grandson of Sun Zi, proposed to attack the Wei capital while the Wei army was tied up besieging Zhao. The strategy was a success. The Wei army hastily moved south to protect its capital, was caught on the road and decisively defeated at the Battle of Guiling. The battle is remembered in the second of the 36 stratagems, besiege Wei, save Zhao, meaning to attack a vulnerable spot to relieve pressure at another point. Domestically, King Hui patronized philosophy and the arts, and is perhaps best remembered for hosting the Confucian philosopher Mengzi at his court. Their conversations form the first two chapters of the book which bears Mengzi's name. Dukes become kings. Qi and Wei become kings. The title of king was held by figurehead rulers of the Zhou dynasty, while the rulers of most states held the title of duke or marquis. A major exception was Chu, whose rulers were called kings since King Wu of Chu started using the title c. 703 BC. In 344 BC the rulers of Qi and Wei mutually recognized each other as kings. King Wei of Qi and King Hui of Wei, in effect declaring their independence from the Zhou court. This marked a major turning point. Unlike in the spring and autumn period, the new generation of rulers ascending the thrones in the Warring States period would not entertain even the pretense of being vassals of the Zhou dynasty, instead proclaiming themselves fully independent kingdoms. Shangyang reforms. Qin. During the early Warring States period, Qin generally avoided conflicts with the other states. This changed during the reign of Duke Xiao, when Prime Minister Shangyang made centralizing and authoritarian reforms in accordance with his legalist philosophy between the years 356 and 338. BC. Shang introduced land reforms, privatized land, rewarded farmers who exceeded harvest quotas, enslaved farmers who failed to meet quotas, and used enslaved subjects as rewards for those who met government policies. As manpower was short in Qin relative to the other states at the time, Shang enacted policies to increase its manpower. As Qin peasants were recruited into the military, he encouraged active immigration of peasants from other states into Qin as a replacement workforce. This policy simultaneously increased the manpower of Qin and weakened the manpower of Qin's rivals. Shang made laws forcing citizens to marry at a young age and passed tax laws to encourage raising multiple children. He also enacted policies to free convicts who worked in opening wastelands for agriculture. Shang abolished primogeniture and created a double tax on households that had more than one son living in the household, to break up large clans into nuclear families. Shang also moved the capital to reduce the influence of nobles on the administration. The rise of Qin was recognized by the royal court, and in 343 BC the king conferred the title of hegemon on Duke Xiao. As was customary for the designated hegemon, the duke hosted a conference of all the feudal lords, although it did not lead to any lasting peace. After the reforms, Qin became much more aggressive. In 340 Qin took land from Wei after it had been defeated by Qi. In 316 Qin conquered Shu and Ba in Sichuan to the southwest. Development of this area took a long time but slowly added greatly to Qin's wealth and power. Wei defeated by Qin in 341 BC, Wei attacked Han. Qi allowed Han to be nearly defeated and then intervened. The generals from the Battle of Guiling met again, by using the same tactic, attacking Bai's capital. Sun Bin feigned a retreat and then turned on the overconfident Wei troops and decisively defeated them at the Battle of Maling. After the battle, all three of the Jin successor states appeared before King Shan of Qi, pledging their loyalty. In the following year, Qin attacked the weakened Wei. Wei was devastatingly defeated and ceded a large part of its territory in return for truce. With Wei severely weakened, Qi and Qin became the dominant states in China. Wei came to rely on Qi for protection, with King Hui of Wei meeting King Shan of Qi on 2 occasions. After Hui's death, his successor King Xiang also established a good relationship with his Qi counterpart, with both promising to recognize the other as king. Chu conquers Yu. Early in the Warring States period, Chu was one of the strongest states in China. The state rose to a new level of power around 389 BC when King Dao of Chu named the famous reformer Wu Ruqi as his chancellor. Chu rose to its peak in 334 BC, when it conquered Yu to its east on the Pacific coast. The series of events leading up to this began when Yu prepared to attack Qi to its north. The king of Qi sent an emissary, who persuaded the king of Yu to attack Shu instead. Yu initiated a large-scale attack at Chu but was defeated by Chu's counterattack. Chu then proceeded to conquer Yu. Qin, Han and Yan become kings. King Jian of Zhou had attempted to use what little royal prerogative he had left by appointing the dukes Jian, Xiao and Hui of Qin as hegemons, thereby in theory making Qin the chief ally of the court. However, in 325 the confidence of Duke Hui grew so great that he proclaimed himself King of Qin, adopting the same title as the King of Zhou and thereby effectively proclaiming independence from the Zhou dynasty. King Hui of Qin was guided by his prime minister Zhang Yi, a prominent representative of the school of diplomacy. He was followed in 323 BC by King Hui of Han and King Yi of Yan, as well as King Cuo of the minor state Zhongshan. In 318 BC, even the ruler of Song, a relatively minor state, declared himself king. Partition of Zhou. King Cao of Zhou had informed his younger brother as Duke Wan of Henan. 3 generations later, this cadet branch of the royal house began calling themselves Dukes of East Zhou. Upon the ascension of King Nan in 314 BC, East Zhou became an independent state. The king came to reside in what became known as West Zhou.